yeah, I'm fully like I'm grateful and I'm appreciative of where I am because yeah, it is a difficult. Uh, a lot of bands don't reach this like stage of being able to make a living from it and stuff. So I'm very grateful that I'm able to do that, and I recognize that. So I don't take it for granted. I don't want to just start putting out like shit quality stuff and
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the Iblis Manifestations Podcast. Joining me on this episode is none other than the man himself, Mr. James McBain. He is the mastermind behind the UK black thrash metal band Hellripper. And I'll be looking forward to having him on for a multitude of reasons, but of course, the main one being the fact that they have just released their third full-length album, Warlock's Grim and Withered Hags, which is now out on Peaceville Records. As I'm sure many of you might be aware, Hellripper have made quite a bit of a name for themselves, particularly in the last 5-6 years or so, which is quite recent in the grand scheme of things when it comes to metal and how old of a genre it is. And, I've been looking forward to having him on there, not just for that reason, but to also get an understanding of the creative process of Hellripper, considering the fact that he pretty much does most of everything himself. So we had a very interesting conversation about that. And on a personal note as well, this is particularly one conversation that I would highly recommend to anyone who is in a band, whether it's up and coming or you're thinking of starting a band, or even a pre-existing one. I would highly recommend you to listen to it for that reason, as I think there's a lot of things that we discussed that could be of value for that particular path, if you will. So, coming shortly will be that conversation, and it was a blast to have him on the podcast. But of course, as always, thank you very much to everyone who supports the show by tuning in, by listening, by sharing, by even leaving your feedback and comments. It's been great to have the kind of reaction and feedback that we've been getting on this show. Of course, last week we had DG from the Icelandic black metal band Mistherming, which had a tremendous response. And if you haven't checked it out already, or if you're new to the channel, then please feel free to do so. And there's quite a bit of a back catalog at this point, which I think is very much worth checking out, with some truly special and high integrity artists within the underground. So, like I said, thank you all very much for your support. We very much appreciate it. So now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome James McBain from Hellripper to Iblis Manifestations.
Right. Evening, James. How we doing, man? Welcome to the show. Been looking forward to this one. You okay?
yeah, man. Hello, and thank you very much for speaking with me, man. Yeah, I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. And yeah, how are you?
Yeah, excellent, man. And thank you for speaking with me. I know, obviously, I've been meaning to talk to you for a while anyway, but I figured since Hellripper's got a new album coming out very soon, what a great opportunity to finally do a conversation together. So tell me, man, how are you feeling? I mean, I think that probably by the time this episode comes out, the album might have already been out anyway, because it's out on the 17th of February. Is that correct?
17. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Cool. How are we feeling, man? Because I had to listen to your single, and I'm intrigued by the progression in the songwriting that you've taken. Because just to this is my personal impression as well, just as a big fan of heavy metal. But to me, like when I first heard you guys, like when I heard the first record, I was like, okay, if I wanted to describe this to someone, I would probably say it's Kill 'Em All with some touches of Bathory and kind of Tom Angel Ripper esque vocals. You know, that's kind of like that was like my first impression of the band.
That'd be a fair assessment, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and obviously, like with this new single, like you were exploring some very interesting grounds, which made me very curious to hear the rest of the record, which I do very much look forward to listening to. But just tell me a little bit. Obviously, I know the third albums are always like a difficult one. You always hear with bands they've got there's always like some kind of complex history behind making the third record for whatever reason. So just tell me a little bit about what the process has been like, you know, and where this progression's coming from, really.
Yeah, like you say, kind of similar, like with the third album, like kind of problem. After the second album was released, October 2020, that's kind of when I started the writing process for this one. Mm-hmm. And I wrote a couple tracks, 2 or 3 songs, something like that. And yeah, I listened back and they sounded very forced and very uninspired, they sounded kind of, yeah, they just sounded like I was trying to write like a Hellripper track or something, but not as good. Like it just sounded like, you know, like I was kind of parodying myself or something. I think that might have been maybe, you know, the first time I got in my head like I need to write a certain way, you know, like maybe like subliminally got it in my head like I've got to write a certain way. So I deleted those tracks and I thought, let's just go in a completely like different direction. Let's try and but clearly this isn't working. So yeah, I kind of like like reset my mind and went, okay, let's start again. Let's try and bring in all these influences, you know, from other styles of metal, other styles of music, like out with metal. See how I can incorporate that into the Hellripper sound. You know, try and just expand the sound, try some new things, you know, third album. So yeah, like I say, it was, if I kept doing what I was doing, I feel like it just would have been, yeah, it would have just gotten stale or something. So yeah, I went in this direction where I was like listening to loads of other stuff, and I thought, yeah, it was a good challenge trying to like incorporate, for example, like something like I would hear in the Beatles or something that I liked, and try and incorporate that into a black metal, black speed context, you know, something like that. It was a cool challenge, and trying to do that without diluting the end result, because I didn't want to shift directions entirely. I still want it to remain Hellripper, black speed, black thrash, but like you say, like with some different twists within the music. So yeah, I started just trying to do that, and yeah, the album's got some things I've never tried before. Even something as simple as the title track has got the only, or the first Hellripper mid-tempo slower song that I've ever written. Every other song's kind of been fast, like thrash beats, D beats and stuff. So yeah, it was a fun process, and I'm feeling great about it. Like, it's definitely my favorite thing I've done, and it's I'm just really happy with how it turned out. I think it's I think it's the best album I've done, like I say, and hopefully other people agree. Hopefully it does well.
Well, I think the most important thing about it, from what I can very easily gather, is that it's an honest approach, which I think that's a mandatory thing when it comes to creating art. Because yes, of course, essentially this is this is pretty much just what you do for a living and everything. But at the same time, that artistic integrity's got to be there for it to survive. And
Yeah.
I think you put it down very well. I think just for a little bit of a context as well, and perhaps let me know if my observations are overreaching. But I think that with the first record, with Coagulating Darkness, you had a lot of songs that essentially had. I mean, there's like so many bits of homage to other pieces of like where it's like, oh, I recognize that riff. This is just something from like Kill 'Em All, just a little bit different. Or hey, this reminds me of Sacrifice by Bathory. And then there's like all these things that obviously very much are there. And there is a real excitement to that, I think, when it's fresh and then when it's new. But one thing that I really like, especially by the second EP or even just the second album, I feel like you kind of took that, I suppose, the essence of Tribute and sort of created somewhat of a trademark sound of your own.
Okay,
which I suppose, and I suppose that helps the fact that you are the one who actually performs all of the music as well. So it has that character to it. So I think that actually, just from a purely like another artist actually observing this, I can very much see how the direction you've taken with this new record is probably the best you could have taken, you know. And I think it will be probably interesting to see how people react to it as well. I would imagine just the title track alone, which has a very interesting name, by the way, Warlock's Grim and Withered Hags. I'm very fascinated by that title. I would imagine that sitting in the middle of a set, of a live set full of D beats and fucking skank beats and whatnot is gonna be very interesting.
Yeah.
So
and it'll be the first time we've like got a song like that as well. So it kind of adds a bit of like diversity to the set and the sound and stuff. And yeah, just to like kind of elaborate on what you were saying there, like I feel that the way that I've taken this direction, and as you said, like kind of try to carve my own sound type thing, I think that just comes with, you know, like experience and being more confident as a songwriter. Like, for example, the first EP, like the very first release, I think it's very rooted in like, you know, Toxic Holocaust, Motorhead. Like it's very like that because I'd never really written songs, and, you know, you're just trying to do your best, and you just kind of, you don't know. Well, I mean, me anyway, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just trying like to see how things worked. And over time, like as you hear more music, as you write more songs, you realize what things kind of work, what doesn't work, what might be interesting to try, from like many different standpoints as well, like even a production standpoint. I mean, when I started, I had no idea what I was doing. Not that I do now, but just kind of, you know, just kind of improving at what I do over nine years or something now. It's been 8 years, 9 years. So just like even being able to try these things, you know, like even just improving on guitar, for example. I mean, one of the main reasons I kind of started Hellripper, and I was really influenced by, like I say, Toxic Holocaust and bands like Dark Throne, Midnight, because it was the music I liked, but they didn't really have like technical guitar. They didn't really have much guitar solos. And if there were guitar solos, they were kind of simple enough. They weren't too complex. And I was never a lead guitar player. I always had friends that I played in like bands with or jammed with who were lead guitar players. So I never learned lead guitar. And so I started Hellripper because I heard these bands and thought, excellent, I don't need to be like a killer lead player. I don't need to be Dave Mustaine or whatever. And just I've improved over the years at guitar, and now like each song on this album has like 2 or 3 guitar solos and stuff like that. And just the ability to kind of combine my influences. Like I say, these bands with very little guitar solos and stuff, but I'm also a massive fan of bands like Metallica, Megadeth, Annihilator, artillery, like these thrash bands that have more complex parts, and now I'm able to kind of try and explore both sides. And yeah, so it's just, yeah, over time, it's just trying different things, and you're bound to pick up things if you listen to a lot of music as I do, and kind of look for things in songs. Like when I'm listening to music, I'm always listening to what's happened in the song. Like, why is this part so cool? Oh, look, the vocals, the guitar part cut out, and it's just the vocals you can hear, and just trying to incorporate all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure thing. I think definitely the technical aspect of it is something that does add to the kind of sound, especially. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but sort of like some of like the little like doodly kind of riffs that you got in the middle of like more straightforward chords and whatnot. But also that, like the quality of that and the clarity in which it comes across from the first record to the second is quite noticeable, I think, just in like the performance that you can hear on the album.
Yeah.
And that's obviously the album, it always has time to get polished, but definitely I think on the more newer stuff that you're just about to put out, I think the virtuosity, I would say, definitely comes through a lot more on this. Like it, yeah, to the point it actually like reminded me a lot in parts of King Diamond. And
Okay.
yeah, and if you notice, I didn't say Merciful Fate. I specifically
Yeah.
said King Diamond because that's what some of the parts actually remind me of. Just in terms of the intricacies of the composition and just using the different elements and the structures within the song. And,
Yeah, it's
and I
funny you say that. Sorry, yeah, it's funny you say that
yeah.
because King Diamond, both Merciful Fate and King Diamond, massive influences. But yes, a lot of the kind of rhythms and kind of chord stuff. I was listening to a lot of King Diamond stuff, like influenced by that with the rhythms and stuff like that. Which is cool that you picked up on that because, yeah, I'm glad that kind of comes across. But yeah, carry on.
No, that's cool, man. That's cool. It validates my own years of listening to metal, I guess. But I think that's good though. Like the point of it is that that just adds so much more value to it, because I think again, to your point earlier as well, for a lack of a better word, you don't necessarily really want to become a meme as a band either, where it's like, oh yeah, this is just a band that sounds like this, like
Yeah.
nothing, like it kind of, I get that sometimes it's cool, like sometimes you got a band that they're gonna sound exactly the same way, whether it's AC/DC or Cannibal Corpse. You
Yeah.
gotta get that consistency of sound from them. But also sometimes as well, especially when you're already evolving so much within these albums, there are progressions to be made. And sometimes I think bands really fuck up that progression too.
Oh yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. Sometimes, like Ketzer is always a good example of that, where they got like
Yeah.
some good stuff going on and then it just goes completely downhill after one tour with Tribulation, which are a great band, by the way. But yeah, so just changing the subject a little bit, I just want to know a little bit more about your background as well, man, because it's interesting to me how you guys, or pretty much just yourself, you're like multiple people essentially, so like how you kind of bled into the scene over time, and especially like the last couple of years, just through the music, but also I think your masterful utilization of social media, you've been able to become this very well respected name. So just tell me a little bit about your background and what's it like actually coming out as a metalhead in Aberdeen, of all places.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I've always been into music, like since I think I was like 5 years old or something. I was like really into music after like what did I hear? I can't remember, but I used to like I would hear the whatever like pop music was on TV and stuff when I was like 5 years old or something like that. And I loved music, and I would like ask my mom. I'd be like, oh, where do you hear music and stuff? And she'd be like, oh well, you have like Top of the Pops, which was on every Thursday or something. I can't remember. And then there was the music channels on TV. So I would just kind of like kind of flick through, like if I could like have the control of the TV or whatever or something, I would just kind of flick through the music channels and all that. And yeah, I always loved just music in general, and especially I discovered like rock music. I always kind of gravitated towards guitar-based music, even when I was young. Just, you know, I would flick through the channels and stuff like it was like the early 2000s, so stuff like the indie scene and all that was kind of happening. So you had loads of bands, probably a bit before that as well. So you had, I remember seeing a lot of like the Hives. What else was there? And I know that there was always like the System of a Down, Slipknot, and things like that. And I always kind of like that. Like I was like, oh, this is cool. It's kind of heavy, you know, like it's heavier than pop music. What is this? And yeah, I just gradually got more and more into it. And I grew up with the UK indie scene with bands like Arctic Monkeys and Libertines and Franz Ferdinand, all that kind of stuff. And eventually I kind of discovered metal when I was I think I maybe just kind of turned into a teenager. I always like kind of liked a few metal songs. I knew like some Iron Maiden, some Black Sabbath, you know, but I didn't really know that metal was like a style. I just thought this is like cool music. But yeah, I discovered Metallica and Megadeth when I was like in early teens, and yeah, immediately thought this is amazing. Went out and bought Peace Cells and Justice for All the next day. Got really into that. Discovered Slayer, that eventually goes on to Cannibal Corpse. Then you're listening to like all these underground stuff and newer bands. So around the time I was like getting into metal was the time where the thrash revival and the new wave of traditional metal was happening. So I was like, I was on the internet, like YouTube, just finding bands like Warbringer, Enforcer, Evil, Gamma Bomb, Skullfist, all this kind of stuff, like, and just discovering loads of music from YouTube and more obscure stuff. And yeah, and I played guitar. I played guitar before, but when I discovered metal, Metallica and stuff, I really got into guitar. And that's when I kind of started taking it more serious. And yeah, when I would jam in school with friends, jam with friends from school and stuff. And we had the excellent problem that I'm sure almost every person has of you cannot find a drummer. You can't, vocalist and drummer, very difficult to find. And we were only like 15 or something at the time. So, you know, we weren't really part of a scene. There was only, I only knew like a few people that liked metal, like up until I was like 17, 18. I didn't really know anyone else that really liked metal other than a couple of my friends. And then, yeah, I kind of got involved in the scene when I turned 18 because you could go to pubs and you could go to venues, and yeah, just kind of gradually got into the Aberdeen scene. And there was a good punk scene, good metal scene at the time. Unfortunately, it only lasted a couple of more years, and then a couple of the venues closed because of noise complaints, and the scene kind of died down a bit. I'm not sure what it's like now because I haven't lived there for a while, but yeah, it seemed to be kind of dying down just before I moved away. But yeah, like you say, with Hellripper, it's been more important to be part of like an online scene, or now that you have the internet, like scenes are kind of worldwide. You know, like people that know Hellripper might know, say, Cruel Force from Germany, and they'll know like Sadistic Force from the US, Wormwitch, Devil Master. You know, so it's like, even though I've never met these bands and they're at the opposite side of the world, like it's still like a scene for styles of music rather than loads of local scenes like the Norwegian black metal scene and stuff like that. And yeah, the thing you said about social media was basically I didn't play live, so I had to go on social media to promote the music. And that was kind of, just doing stuff on social media, just trying things, and it seemed to go well, and the band grew.
I mean, just looking at the mountain of merch stock that you've got behind you, I think that
Yeah.
that kind of speaks for itself, man.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see the vinyl.
Oh yes, I can now. Yeah.
Yeah, that arrived yesterday.
Killer. Oh, I'm guessing that's the new album then.
Yeah, that's the new album. Yeah, it just arrived yesterday, and I've been packing orders and stuff for the past
Holy
2
shit,
days.
man. Getting the
Yeah.
vinyls on time. That's crazy.
I know, yeah.
Yeah. No,
Just
well,
2 weeks in advance.
yeah, I think that's cool, man. I mean, there's a multitude of things to that. And by the way, just for clarification as well, I believe you and I are of a very similar age as well. I think there's only like a few months difference between us.
Yeah,
You
27.
know, yeah. I just turned 28 back in November. Not to obviously alienate the audience, for because that always happens. Everyone always thinks I'm like 20 years older than I actually am, but I guess we kind of get that as metalheads sometimes anyway. But the thing that I wanted to say as well is two things. A, you know, like you mentioned how you got into it from initially listening to like maybe Arctic Monkeys or then System of a Down or Slipknot and whatnot. Like a lot of times, I think people get uncomfortable if like let's say someone who got into the scene from the tape trading scene, which I have all the respect in the world for, like I fucking love that shit. And actually having grown up in Iran where a lot of this wasn't accessible, I actually probably relate to that scene a lot more, even though it came a little while before me. But I also think that it's really important to be able to recognize that it doesn't matter how you get into metal.
Yeah.
If you're gonna be like a true diehard, it doesn't matter how you get there. You're gonna get there, and you're gonna become a diehard just like anyone else, And yes, of course, there's like certain cultural essences to it, like especially like in the '90s. I guess that might have been somewhat of a more of a danger element, which makes it cool, makes it fun. Like I've spoken to people here in the UK who were around in like early 90s when Morbid Angel was coming around, and they're saying like the vibe was fucking off the charts, and had the real sense of excitement and like I said, danger to it, which I like. I like it when that relates to metal. But also at the same time, who's to say that, let's say, you listen to, you get into metal from listening to, I don't know, like you said, System of a Down. But if down the line, that same person could find themselves listening to Blasphemy.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, that's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's like, I don't mind it when people get exposed to the genre through whatever means necessary.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, I had no real... I didn't know anyone that liked metal and stuff, so kind of like, tape trading or being shown bands and stuff wasn't really a possibility for me. So the only way I could really find stuff was through like TV or seeing something in a magazine or something like that. Though my uncle, he passed away before I was born, but he was into metal and rock and stuff like in the 70s and 80s, and my grandma, she kept all of his LPs. I actually just got them a couple months ago after so long. And when I was like, I would tell my mom, I would be like, oh, I like, I heard this cool song. It's by like this band called Black Sabbath or something. And she'd be like, oh, your uncle had a few of these LPs. And eventually I saw them. And I remember being like really young and seeing all these. It was the cover art that really kind of jumped out at me. He had stuff that there was like loads of Thin Lizzy, loads of Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Discharge, Motorhead, stuff like that.
He had good taste,
and I never kind of like looked into it. I think I was too young to really like understand like really what it was, but I thought like, oh, the artwork's really cool, and I think that always kind of maybe stayed in the back of my mind. Like if I heard like, oh, Judas Priest, I'd be like, oh, I've heard of Judas Priest. Maybe they are good. And I went and checked them out. And of course, Judas Priest, they are good. Breaking news. But
just about,
I think there's so many ways people can get into music, and it's like, you can listen to different music as well. Like you don't need to just listen to metal. You don't just you know. And
How
yeah,
crucial do you think it was for getting into this, for having had access to the, like you said, the early punk scene that was around in Aberdeen for a while, and being able to go to those shows? How much do you think that actually had a positive impact in you being
I
basically where you
never
are now?
I never actually went. I think my first show in Aberdeen was like when I was 18 or something, because
Sure.
they were usually in like pubs and things where you had to be 18 to get in. But yeah, the punk scene in Aberdeen, like when I got into it, at I think I was it must have been 18, I think, maybe 19, I can't, yeah, something like that, 17, 18, 19. Um, when I got into it, yeah, it was really like meeting all these people and like they learning about like getting into like kind of underground crust stuff and stuff that I'd never heard of before. And I was always like a punk fan, and I still am, but this was kind of like underground punk and stuff that I never heard, like some local like small touring bands that weren't really on the radar and stuff. And yeah, just doing things in a DIY fashion as well. Like a lot of shows, yeah, everything was kind of just DIY, very minimal equipment, very inexpensive equipment and stuff, which I still like owe a lot to now. Like I don't like to overcomplicate things,
Hmm.
for the most part.
Was everyone playing like Stag guitars and Line 6 Spider or something like that?
I'm
Or maybe not that cheap.
I cannot. I'm trying to remember, man.
Yeah.
I cannot remember.
Yeah. You know, the main reason anyway that I actually asked that question, is it's very important to me, because obviously I'm I'm a diehard fucking metalhead anyway, that's
hmm,
it's always been the case, but I still in the UK quote unquote scene, if you want to call it, I just call it like having access to live music, that's the
hmm,
way I identify it. And to me, I still feel like somewhat of an outsider considering the different background that I have. And
hmm,
that's not an outsider in a negative sense, but more so the fact that I feel like I have an outside perspective as well as an inside one now,
hmm.
after
Yeah,
having been active here for over 10 years. And to me, I see a crucial importance just in having access to grassroots venues
hmm,
and actually being able to play live shows and kind of expressing yourself and having all these experiences, which for the most part, a lot of times these experiences there's nothing grandiose about them. They're actually quite shit. Like imagine like traveling all the way across the country just to go and play in a fucking damn venue,
yeah,
and
man.
and for barely any money, but there is something to it. It's a powerful thing. It shapes who you are as a person, but it also gives character to art, and it, most importantly, I would say, in the bigger picture, it adds to culture. The heavy metal culture is something that I think is it's like, to you and I, it's probably like a fountain of life, you could say, probably. And the main reason why I asked about the importance of it is that because obviously we know that in the UK, a lot of times, and especially I think in the last few years, we probably could see that these things, like venues, grassroots venues, or these activities in general, aren't really taken as seriously as they
Absolutely, yeah.
should.
Yeah,
And
man.
that's kind of the main reason why I was asking about the effect and impact it will have had on you growing up in a place like Aberdeen, which is essentially, it's quite far out,
Yeah,
compared to like a lot of other places, so that's the main
yeah,
reason why I asked that question, just to bring
yeah,
some attention to that, really.
yeah. And like you say, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we've all seen it, and I think it was kind of increased in the pandemic. Like so many venues are closing, or they had to rely on crowdfunding and stuff like that to stay afloat, and even not just venues, but like pubs and cafes and just places that are part of a scene, maybe not even in a live music context. Yeah, so many of them are like in danger over the past few years, and yeah, it's horrible, man. It's just, yeah,
But I also think that this, it's not a. I don't think it's a doom and gloom situation, because it's like.
Oh, no, there's still like loads going on and all that, but it's
But
just
also, the thing I'm pointing to is, yeah, of course, there's still stuff happening, and at the time, at this very moment, actually, if we want to talk about it, I don't think gigs are doing too bad at all. I think it's going all right. Like I would say,
yeah,
at least in my experience, is perhaps the same for you as well. But like with my band Trivax, we have played our best shows ever since all of this pandemic bullshit like
yeah,
shifted away, and we've been playing shows again. So it's like I'm not complaining about it, but I'm making the point that at the end of the day, it's in our control as a community to take responsibility for essentially the culture that makes us feel alive. That's the
yeah.
point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, man, I'd
You know.
agree. Yeah, yeah, we've played some of our. I mean, yeah, there's so many factors. I mean, I can't really compare it, but yeah, after the pandemic, we've played some of our biggest shows and things. But I mean, the band has grown since before the pandemic. We had an album and stuff, so
Mhm.
it's difficult to kind of compare directly.
Of course.
Yeah, I think yeah, live music, like yeah, like I say, it's been doing well on my end, like and I think things are getting a bit back to normal now, but I think yeah, the pandemic had a massive effect with obviously all these costs going up and uh bands having to cancel like last minute and venues closing down and stuff. So I think people lost a lot of trust in in the whole like live music scene, or even not even just music, but the whole events kind of thing. I think
I think people mostly, more than anything, it's not just the live events, but they mostly lost trust in pre-sale tickets, and
yeah.
you can
Oh
see
yeah, of
the
course.
effect of that all across the board.
Yeah,
And I think that some bands and promoters just don't fucking help it either, because I get that people want to do things for an incentive, but sometimes all you have to do is just take a risk, because a lot of times you don't know how a show is going to turn out
yeah,
until after it's happened, or like on the day where you actually find out what the turnout's going to be like. And I
yeah,
get that maybe that doesn't really make sense logistically or from like a business perspective, but a lot of times, it works out. It works out, and you just gotta have well, for lack of a better word, faith. You
yeah.
know.
Yeah, I agree, but again, it's like the whole circle. It kind of like it's like the whole circle. Like people don't want to buy the pre-sales because they don't know if if something will happen or if it won't happen, or and then the event doesn't happen because it needs the pre-sale tickets
Yeah.
to make it to guarantee that things will happen. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think things have been getting better on that end, at least from what I've seen. Um, I might be wrong, but it seems like it's getting better. Less events are getting cancelled, and it seems like things are going more to plan over recently, for the most part, which is
Yeah,
good.
for sure. I think the perspective which I'm coming from as well is simply just a reminder of why we do what we do.
Mm,
That's mainly the thing that I'm
yeah,
saying, is that it's fantastic if you're able to make a living off of this. Perfect, fucking amazing. But we do this because we want to do it. And even
mm,
if there wasn't money in it, we'd still be fucking doing it anyway, because this
absolutely.
is our culture, right?
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
the point I'm trying to get to,
yeah,
as a reminder to promoters, bands. It's like, hey, you know, this is if you wanted to do this for money, there's a lot better opportunities out there for you where you could invest your time, and you'd probably get much more incentive out of it than just going on stage and fucking making incomprehensible noise. But you know what I'm saying. But just speaking of the live thing as well, you guys have got such a cool but old school energy about your approach to the shows. And I was watching some of the footage that you had. I think didn't you like do some shows in Europe recently or something? And
yeah,
yeah, I was looking at that, and I was just like, man, it's like I get that it goes very well, like hand in hand with the kind of package that you guys are offering in terms of the music and the style, but it just has this sort of time capsule element of
Okay.
what was cool about metal in the 80s.
Mm.
You know, where it's just like, you know, like the video for I always reference this clip because it means a lot to me, but you know, the music video for Circle of Tyrants, Celtic Frost, and just like the kind of the VHS vibe, and then you
Oh,
got
yeah,
the
yeah.
crowd, and then because it's like a live setting, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and the crowd are just like fucking feral, and everyone is like waiting for someone to go past just so they can like point and then like fucking headbang.
Yeah,
And
man.
that's the kind of, I think that you guys do a very good job of sort of, I suppose, bringing some of that essence into
Thank you. Thank you,
you
man.
know, and manifesting the manifestation of evil.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So that,
a lot of... Oh, sorry. On you go.
no, I was just gonna say. So, like, how does this come about? You know, like, where's this? Because even though you're the person who's in charge of the music in the studio, how does this sort of energy come about? You know, what's your kind of relationship with your members, and also what's the general approach to the live situation that creates for such a dynamic but also explosive sort of experience?
Yeah, yeah, like you say, like I think it's just we try and be authentic. I mean, I like personally for me, I couldn't, you know, play a character, and I don't want to wear, you know, corpse paint and stuff. It's just not in my personality to do that, and so I'm not going to do that just to, you know, tick a box, like to, and you know, I'm not an evil person and stuff, and I don't want to. I'm not good at, like, yeah, like I say, being a character, being like trying to come across as something I'm not.
So are you
So
telling me that you're not gonna wear a cape on stage and have all your house furniture on stage and some candles?
maybe. Nah, it's just yeah, it's just my favorite kind of vibe and all that is I would reference as like 80s Metallica, that Venom show at the Hammersmith. I can't remember the year, 1985 or something. I can't remember.
It's around, yeah, I think 84, 85,
Yeah, something like
probably. Yeah.
that. And Motorhead again, live at Hammersmith again, where the
One of the
energy...
best live albums fucking
Exactly.
ever, by the way. Yeah.
Exactly, man. So that's like kind of my references, just kind of just crazy energy and stuff. I think it's more in my personality as well. I like to, when I'm watching a show, I like to see the bands just running around, going crazy and stuff, in this style of music, you know. So yeah, it's fun for me, just kind of running around and dancing or whatever on stage. And yeah, the members, like, yeah, I think we've got a good relationship. Currently, we've been this version of the live lineup has been together 4 years, so we know each other like quite well. We've played quite a few shows together, and I would say we're good friends. And yeah, I know I've known Clarky, the bassist, for about 10 years now. He was one of the first people I met in the Aberdeen scene, for example. So yeah, I think, yeah, we don't really kind of say, all right, we have to act like this, but we just kind of go out on stage and do what kind of comes naturally. You know, it's a bit, kind of embrace a bit of the chaos. If things go wrong, they go wrong. As long as it's a like a wild, we try and just make it as crazy, wild, as energetic as possible. Yeah.
I like that, man. You know, so like that's the attitude that I think is missing with so many bands as well, because everyone is so focused on, you know, I mean, I've had conversations about this with close friends of mine who are in very, very good bands, but at the same time, you know, it's like you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you're focusing so much on, oh, is that guitar sound right? Or is the drum
Yeah.
trigger working? I mean, you should never use drum triggers anyway to begin with. But, you know, or like, oh, I can't hear myself very well through the monitor. You know, like these things, it's like, yeah, it really does enhance the experience for you as a performer to have these
Yeah.
things in order, of course. But they're not essential. you know.
Yeah,
And
and I think, yeah, I
at the
think
end of
coming
it,
from
at the end of it, what you need is just that fire that you're going to project into the audience, you know, and that organic, raw energy that's within the band.
yeah, I think that's helped coming from like the punk scene myself, like, you know, being involved in a punk scene where, you know, the setup isn't always the best and all that. And some of the best shows I've played has been when the monitors aren't working, I can't hear my guitar, the vocal monitor so bad that I've ruined my voice because I'm trying to overcompensate and stuff. Some of the best shows have been like disaster shows.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's very
Spinal
nice.
Tap moments.
Yeah, it's very nice to hear yourself, and it's very. I mean, it is. It helps when everything's going well and everything. Yeah, everything just falls into place. The equipment's good and all that. But yeah, I don't. It's not. If it's not, then just make it work. Like for me, I'm not like picky. I'm not, like I say, I don't try and I don't strive for like perfection in terms of like sound, if that makes sense, or whatever.
The thing is,
Yeah.
as well, the crowd can only absorb so much of it as well. You know, like a lot of times, and I know this is such a, I know this is probably like a hard pill to swallow for a lot of musicians, especially like guitarists who'll put all of that like effort into like making cool riffs and then playing them live. But
Yeah.
what the crowd hears,
Oh,
especially if
absolutely.
they're in the middle of a movement, if they're in the middle of a mosh pit, all they're gonna get is like, oh yeah, the drum beat, you know, and then like a little bit of vocals, and like the guitars are just there to accompany it. Whilst they're in the middle of a pit, focusing on like not getting punched in the head, they're not gonna
Yeah.
hear exactly all the million notes that you might be playing on the guitar or whatnot, you know.
Yeah.
But that's cool. It adds to the moment. But then that's exactly the reason why sometimes the specific nature of it is, you know, it's not necessary, like we said, you know, it's that
Yeah.
it's that kind of punk attitude that gets you through it, you know. Like, I'll make an example. One of my favorite shows I have ever seen, which was completely fucked, by the way, is the first time I ever watched Niflheim. You're familiar
Okay.
with Niflheim,
Yeah, yeah.
I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this was back in October 2016. I wonder actually if you might have been to that show, because this was in Glasgow. It was this shit show of a festival called.
Oh yeah, I've heard of the. I know I wasn't there, but I've heard of the
Yeah.
festival.
Oh man, yeah,
I don't know exactly.
Caledonian. Yeah, it was called Caledonian Darkness. That's
Yeah,
the
something
one.
like that.
Yeah,
I've heard
Listen.
stories and stuff, but I'm not. Yeah.
bro, fucking, it was the craziest thing ever. Because they were headlining, I think it was on the Sunday or the second day, whenever it was. I still got one of the posters I pinched from the venue here. And they fucking... And I was expecting 2 more bands to play before they went on. But I remember going up the stairs and being like, shit, I hear Sodomizer. Niflheim are playing. Fuck, what is going on? And I ran in. And I can see Niflheim on stage fucking playing. I was like, what the hell is going on here? So I ran all the way to the front. Fucking, I got so excited. Somehow I went from the very back of the venue to the very front barriers somehow within seconds. I don't know how I did it. But fucking, because I just love that band, you know, and I hope that they'll still carry on. But anyway, and they're playing, and I noticed, I'm like, they're not in their stage gear.
Okay.
And like Tyrant, the bass player, Eric, I believe, he's just in jeans. I'm like, all right,
Okay.
this is kind of unusual. What the fuck's going on here? And then they finish Sodomizer, and Hellbutcher, vocalist, goes something like, "What song would you guys like to hear?" And I was like, I didn't think, and I just went, "Infernal Flames of Destruction." And he looked at me and he goes, "Yes, Infernal Flames of Destruction." And then they started playing the fucking song. And I was like, what? What the fuck just happened? What is going on here? Did I just request a fucking song at a Niflheim concert and then they started fucking playing it? And then basically, about like 20 minutes later, you know, like they were quite, I have to say, they were a bit drunk too, you know, and I think bass player like stepped on his cable, and then the amp almost like fell off, and then they had to
Oh,
move
I've
off
done
of
that so many times.
stage. And then shortly after, the organizer came on stage and then said, "Sorry, like the gig's pretty much done. No one else is playing now." And it was like,
Okay.
what? And then someone chucked a fucking bottle at him, and it missed him by like this fucking close. And it was just a very interesting moment. But like, as shit as that was for the bands, you know, because I don't think they ever got paid properly. 2 of the bands got canceled. But for me, that was like one of my favorite gigs ever. Because I
Yeah.
just fucking went in after the first song. They were like, "What song do you want to hear?" So I gave them the song that I wanted to hear, and then they started fucking playing it to a room like full of like 500-600 people. It was fucking amazing,
Yeah.
you know. So just case point that it doesn't have to be perfect sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah,
the
I
shit
totally
is
agree,
good.
man. I totally
Yeah.
agree, man. Yeah, the amount of times I've went to a show and I'll be in the front row and I'll come back and I'll be like, yeah, that was the best show ever. Like the band were sounding so good, whatever. And then I'll go on YouTube the next day and the videos, I'm like, fuck, this band, they were horrible. Like they were horrible,
Yeah.
but it was still amazing.
Yeah, man. It's just one of them things, you know, like I said, it's technical difficulties will come your way, but
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
man.
it's
All the time.
yeah, you know, I don't know if you're a fan of pro wrestling at all or not, but I was listening to The Undertaker on his Hall of Fame speech, and he said something really interesting to me, which has really stuck with me since, because this was like a year ago, I think. And he said, "Perception is reality," and you know, like he went into details as to like why he meant that on one. But ever since then, like every time we play a show or every time I'm in a situation, I just think perception's reality. You might have something on stage that's bugging the fuck out of you, but if people see you enjoying yourself, they're gonna enjoy
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah, I would
You know?
totally agree. Yeah, I would totally agree. So yeah, on the other side of that as well, I think bands such as, yeah, like you say, like maybe Niflheim or like ourselves, the style of music kind of lends itself well to things,
Chaos.
chaos and like if things go wrong, it's not like, depending on what goes wrong, it's not always such a big deal. But you know, if it's like a really professional band that relies on, you know, things going well, sometimes that's not the best for them. But yeah, for bands like for me, like I embrace that kind of stuff. Like if things go wrong, I mean, shit happens, man. It just adds
Absolutely.
to it. Just adds to it.
Yeah, I think so too, man. You know, and you know, I guess that's the difference between performing live and being in the studio as well. Is that in the studio you've got absolute quality control. And actually, speaking of which, how is the studio process for yourself? Because you pretty much, it's almost like you have to pretend to be different people, because you gotta do the guitars and then you gotta do the bass,
Yeah.
drums, and one thing actually, when I say different people, is that's one noticeable thing when you listen to the new single. And perhaps I'm making presumptions here, so please correct me if I am, but you hear one solo and then you'll hear another, and you can tell that that's supposed to be 2 different guitarists that would do that live, right? So okay, so I'm correct about that. So just tell me, you know, like what's sort of that process like for you? You know, how do you keep things in order? Do you get any kind of support, or do you just keep track of things on your own and just keep pushing? How does it work?
It's mainly on my own. I get opinions as I go, as I go. Like you know, once I finish like a rough, like something, like I'll send it to the other guys in the live band, or I'll send it to the label, or friends, or my partner will check or will listen, and they kind of say, they give their thoughts on it and stuff. And usually it's when I'm like, you know, like not sure about something, and I'll ask and they'll say, no, it doesn't work. And I'll be like, yeah, I thought so. It's good to change that. And it's good to, I want to make it kind of sound like a full band on the recording, and especially with the guitars. Like you say, I do like to try and keep in my mind, like if there were 2 guitarists in the band. So I'll do, just thinking of the single there, I'm trying to think of the first solo.
There's even like a slightly different tone between the solos. Am I correct?
I'm trying to think of like how the solos go. I'm trying to remember them. But yeah, I know I went into one of them thinking, I wanted to be a bit more not melodic, but a bit more, let's say melodic, like like
kind of like shredding, but with clear notes rather than just shredding for the sake of like making a noise.
Yeah, and then the second solo is kind of like that. So it's kind of like I'll go into, say for example, I'll go into one solo and I'll be like, okay, I want to do like something like fast, like Angus Young type stuff. Like I'll do that kind of thing. But the next solo I want it to sound like, say, Dave Mustaine. Like, like I'll have like a kind of idea in that kind of way. Try and have like two different play styles, like as two guitarists would. And yeah, I do get Joseph, the live guitar player for Hellripper. He does come in and do some guitar solos on a few tracks, which is really good because he's got completely different play style and completely different influences to me. So it's always cool to get someone else involved that can add something different in that respect. Like even something just like that. Like I know for one of the solos, he was like listening to a lot of Queen. So he came up with like these Queen sounding like licks or whatever. And it's even harmonized kind of like after he told me, I was listening to a lot of Queen. I then went, oh, excellent. Can you harmonize it as if like Brian May would do that? He wasn't too happy about that because it turned out it was horrible to harmonize, but he did it and it sounded excellent. So yeah, I try and
that's cool, man. Because I think with like some licks or solos, whatever, the harmonizing it isn't always a straightforward thing, and especially like in the case of Brian May, he never harmonized things exactly the same way. It was almost like the notes would go in and out of different sort of I guess scale comparisons or like the difference that it would create. It was almost like two different leads, but then they would somehow like coincide with each other.
Exactly.
It's a little bit like the intro of completely different, but the intro of Somberlane by Dissection. Okay, because that's essentially like two different leads, but then the way that they coincide is it creates this insanely beautiful fucking melody.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about like now we have the technology to do things at home with kind of unlimited time and digitally and stuff, so you don't need to like hurry and do things on tape and waste loads of money and stuff. So now you can try so many things. Like I'll harmonize it this way, I'll add this different note, or what if I pan this one to the left and this one to the right? What if they kind of sweep in different like all over the place and stuff? So yeah, that's been a thing that I've been doing on this album a lot, like just trying like different production techniques and different harmonies and things, like just adding guitars everywhere to see what works. And the layering of guitars and instruments on this album is quite more than I'm used to as well. Like at some points there's like 6 guitars playing at once, and it's not the easiest to figure out how to make that work live, but
I feel you, man.
That problem afterwards. The live and the studio thing, I kind of separate. Like I don't really think of the live aspect when I'm doing the studio stuff. I think of them as totally like because I don't want the live thing to interfere with a song being good. I don't want to, like, if something sounds really cool, but I'm like, that's going to be really difficult to sing and play at the same time. Then you might be like, oh, I'll change it, I'll simplify it. So I'm like, I'll figure it out later. That's a future James problem.
That's an interesting point, man, because it's like there's so many great fucking songs out there where bands just aren't able to play them live, due to the different instruments that are used, and you always have to think like this is. I identify with what you're saying because it's a real fucking dilemma sometimes, because it's like then you worry that, okay, what if this turns out to be a really good song? Everyone likes it, but then everyone complains why you never play it live. And we do have many cases of that.
Yeah, I do think of that sometimes, but then I'm just like, if everyone likes it, then we'll play it live and we'll figure out something. But yeah, it's always nice when it's a simple song that everyone likes, and it's like just power chords, and you're like, excellent. Kind of.
Sure.
Yeah, that's always my favorite ones to play live, like the ones that require kind of less focus on the actual music, so you can kind of interact with the crowd and have fun that way.
I find that sometimes it's cool having stuff that you play live that's complicated, but then sometimes it's nice to have something simple, because the lesser you have to focus on what you're playing on the guitar, the more you can project into the crowd, and
Definitely.
Whether it's from the perspective of just being an entertainer, or just from the perspective of just, that sheer dominance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just like you say, that's anytime there's like a complicated song coming up, or like a part that's really difficult, it's like, oh, fuck's sake. Can't wait till we get to the next song where it's 3 chords and like 2 verses. But it'll be fun playing this new album live, because it's a lot more complex, not even just to play like in terms of structures and stuff, which is okay for me, because I've heard the songs a million times over the past 2 years. Like I've heard them like every day, so I know the songs like perfectly. It's just I feel sorry for the other guys having to like learn it, like more complicated stuff. I feel I'm like, okay, learn this new song, and they check it out and it's like 18 riffs with no repetition or something.
I feel that, man, because the thing is as well, I relate to this situation a lot, because you've had all the time, of writing the song, recording the demos, and then doing all the other stuff to get to know it. And then to you, it's like, oh yeah, of course I know that song, even though it might have like a really weird fucking structure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But then the rest of the band, they gotta learn it in like a shorter space of time, and then obviously not writing it probably makes it more difficult to learn it as well.
Yeah,
so
I would absolutely say that. Yeah, people say all the time, like this, like if someone's like learning a Hellripper song, they'll be like, oh, this is a difficult thing. I'll be like, not to me. Like it's my playing style. For example, like people say, oh, this was harder than like whatever than this other song. And I'll say, yeah, but I can't play the other song because it's not my playing style. That's difficult for me to play. Like I can't think of any examples, but some of the Hellripper rhythms, I think I've been told by the other guys, are quite, like on the guitar, like they're kind of jumpy and quite unusual. I mean, to me, they're not, but they said that. But it's my playing style, so I write what I can play. So
I can actually I mean, from a musician's perspective, I don't know how much of the audience might be able to relate to this, but just from a guitarist and vocalist perspective, I know we obviously briefly mentioned him earlier, but James Hetfield, you can try to play guitar like him, sure. You can try to do vocals like him, but try doing both. Good fucking luck. The rhythm, and it's so fucking complicated, but like to him, you watch him live, and then he's hitting all the notes, and then he's playing all the rhythm, and he's got these weird percussive riffs, which make it so much more harder to play and sing at the same time, that when you're watching him, it looks effortless. But to your point, to him, it's probably just simple. He's just like doing his own thing. But try and replicate anything that he does, even in any of the newer albums. Try and play and sing what he's doing at the same time, and your brain just goes, that doesn't work. It's very impressive. I actually think, even though they're like probably one of the biggest bands in the world, if not the biggest, that's almost like an underrated, I think, almost feature about the band that no one acknowledges enough, by my estimate.
I mean, they're probably my favorite metal band of all time, and just that's how that's how I learned metal guitar, by learning Metallica. And even on their own, like the guitar in Metallica sounds easy, but the mixture of the guitar and the drums, like for example, say like Fight Fire with Fire or
it's
Black.
So fucking yes.
They like the drums switch from the, what do you call it, like the upbeat to the downbeat, like they switch and it just like confuses everything that's going on, and I love it. And yeah, songs like Black, like,
yeah, man, that's a great example. Battery's the same, man. Like, how fucking weird is that? Like, everyone's heard it so many times. Everyone just thinks, oh yeah, it's Battery. Yeah, try playing it and singing it, or like you said, the guitars and then the drums, because the drums, you know, like we're obviously getting into the technicals here, but it's fine. I'm enjoying talking about it. But like, for example, you know, like you listen to most like thrash metal albums and or even death metal albums. Everything is always very straightforward in the sense that, say, just speaking about the drums, you got the skank beats, you know, where it's just one straight thing, you know, it's just like 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, and then you got like some fills here and there, just still very impressive. There's great ways of doing that. But then you listen to what fucking Lars was doing on some of those records, you know, between like Ride the Lightning to and Justice, and it's just like, what? It's way more complicated than you think it is. It's not straightforward at all, you know, because there's all these random offbeat kicks and things like that. Like, for example, in Battle or Blacken, like you said, is so difficult, man, you know. So still,
I know,
biggest credit to that band as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. And because like I say, I was learning guitar, and then I was like, okay, I'll try vocals, like. And yeah, the two bands I liked were Megadeth and Metallica, and yeah, of course, Dave Mustaine's just ridiculous at guitar, and I'd be like, okay, I'll try my vocals and I'll try singing at the same time, and then you try and play something like, I don't know. So, I mean, even Master of Puppets is quite difficult for me at least, to do vocals and play at the same time, and yeah, Battery or something. It's like. Yeah.
Well, just the verse riff from Master of Puppets. There's a YouTube video. I recommend you to check it out if you haven't seen it yet. But
it's like out of time, like
the time signature, and he breaks it down. Yes, it's so like, and then you realize how fucking weird it really is, you know, and how like if you were to like try and do Master of Puppets properly with like a click track, it's like, yeah, that's not gonna work. You know, it's like
so cool. It's so cool.
It is. Yeah. But you know, like, just to make a point as well, see, like, we're talking about this, you know, and we're talking both from the perspective of, I suppose, musicians, but also big fans of this whole thing. But I think it's important to acknowledge how much it really takes to actually, first of all, even have a band to begin with, and then to bring it to a level where it's recognized, it makes sense, it's cohesive, but then to even bring it to a level where it actually becomes sustainable. So in the case of yourself, I have to admire your I guess, the way you can keep things in order, but also move the thing forward, because essentially in the studio, you're taking responsibility for that. That includes recording drums, miking up, recording guitars, recording vocals, writing the songs, writing lyrics, mixing and mastering, and that's just the studio part of it. On the other side, you've got arranging a full band, showing everyone how the songs are done in whatever method that you choose to go with, actually playing shows, arranging these live shows, focusing on the artwork, creating a fucking merch, and then essentially like running a business, you know, like essentially, like, I know it's not probably a very attractive word in a metalhead context, but essentially you're working as an entrepreneur, and the amount of dimensions involved in just creating a band and then having this life, and then you still gotta, you know, like, just put all this stuff into it. I think it takes a lot, and I commend how you're able to stay focused, I think, more than anything, actually, and keep all of this going, because there's a lot of different dimensions to that. Yeah. So how does that work for you? Like, how do you, like, what does your like, the reason why I even bring this up is earlier you said you've got unlimited amount of time to sit by the computer and play around with the sounds to come up with what you want. That basically tells you all you need to know, because not everyone has unlimited time, you know. So
well, maybe unlimited. Like, unlimited's not the right word, but, like, you know, I've got more time than.
Yeah, it's the fact that you can dedicate to just dedicate
Yeah.
time to just doing that because that's what you do. So what's that like? What's been even the transition like into being in a situation where having Hellripper is actually sustainable as a career for you personally?
Yeah. I think mainly I enjoy it so much because I love doing it. I love everything about Hellripper. I love doing music, and I love listening to music and learning about music and writing music and all that. So I think that's what kind of keeps the motivation, really. I just like
Mm.
doing it. And yeah, I think I'm lucky in some respect that I think Hellripper's kind of grown gradually over the last 9 years. So it's been less of a transition, as you say. Like for some bands, like they release an EP or an album and they just go straight to, like, they just
Mm.
explode. And I can imagine that being quite jarring, like having, like not doing anything, and then all of a sudden you're doing 6-month tours and you've got a million merch orders to fill, and you're dealing with managers, booking agents on different continents and stuff like that. Like I can imagine that being very, very jarring. So for me, I'm kind of glad that it's kind of gone gradually, so I can learn at the same time. Like I'm not just being thrust into something and I don't know what I'm doing and stuff like that. And yeah, um, yeah, kind of. See, it's difficult to explain because I'm in the process, so it's difficult to
Of
see.
course.
So like it's difficult to see from the outside. Like some people like tell me, oh, this, like they say it looks like this, and I'm like, okay, I've got no idea, like, because 99% of my life is thinking about or looking at something to do with Hellripper, so it's difficult to see if other people are taking notice and stuff, if that's the correct way to put it. But yeah, it was just each release has just kind of grown, has kind of expanded the fan base. And yeah, since I still do, I think the main reason I'm still able to do make a living out of Hellripper is because it's mainly just me involved. There are other people that help out, and there's labels and booking agents and things, but for the most part, it's me. Like even something as simple as recording, I don't need to pay thousands of pounds for a studio each time I want to record something, and mixing. I don't need to split the profits between 3, 4, 5 people. I don't
So I
have
also
a
get
manager.
the impression that you do it because you enjoy it. Because a lot of times,
Yeah,
when you split these duties, it's to create a sense of comfort. And obviously, sometimes it's just that you need other people's skills. But I feel like you almost seem more motivated by the fact that you are completely hands on with what goes
yeah,
on with the band.
yeah. I like to be completely hands-on because I like to make sure everything's kind of going as I want it to go. I have had to, with things like Brexit happening and like shipping costs and all that kind of stuff. Over the past couple of years, I've had to get an EU store and a US store, which are like managed by like other companies, other people. But my main store is still the Bandcamp store, which I sell all the merch from here. And yeah, I just enjoy doing it. I enjoy I feel like it gives me more of like a connection to the people that are supporting me. Um,
Hmm.
if someone likes the music enough to buy a t-shirt or something, um, I don't know, I feel cool that I get to send it personally, and you know, um, yeah, just like little things like that. Yeah, I just like doing it, and yeah, I'm fully, like, I'm grateful and I'm appreciative of where I am, because yeah, it is a difficult. Uh, a lot of bands don't reach this like stage of being able to make a living from it and stuff. So I'm very grateful that I'm able to do that, and I recognize that. So I don't take it for granted. I don't want to just start putting out like shit quality stuff and just like kind of make other people do tasks and then not pay attention and stuff, and things go wrong and
Yeah.
I've got no idea what's happening and things like that. So yeah, I mean, it probably will get to a stage, or I mean, kind of hopefully it gets to a stage where maybe I'll need to bring in other people. But I mean, even then, yeah, I've got other people involved, you know, like Peaceville, the label.
Yeah.
They're involved and they help a lot with, you know, they take a lot of tasks, like just for example, the printing and organizing all the LPs and CDs and cassettes, like making sure that all runs smoothly, and they've got their warehouse and distribution and all that where they can send things to shops in the US or Australia or whatever, which I would find more difficult to do, and it'd be very time consuming. And then I've got booking agents now who take care of the live side of things, which again would take a lot of time and stuff. So I have like other people helping, of course, and I really appreciate other people's help. Like, I don't want to say I'm doing completely everything on my own, because the people that are involved are massive helps. But yeah, it's just the whole thing's enjoyable for me. Like, I enjoy the whole process.
I think it's a really inspiring thing to hear, actually. And you know, one thing which I immediately recognize from what you're saying is, you know, when you're talking about the fact that you get to send off the shirts yourself to
Yeah.
whoever's ordered it. There's something to that. There's something very personal to it, I feel, in the sense that you're connecting with someone who you might have not met, but you're connecting with them over your music, which is already the thing that's probably the most important to you anyway. So what better could that get? And essentially, I feel, and maybe I'm a little bit crazy for thinking like this, because, you know, I've had an interesting relationship with my understanding of death and the role it has played in my life. But the way I look at it is, that's essentially like, it's almost like you're sending a part of yourself somewhere else in the world that's gonna stay there and survive forever. You know, it's almost like every vinyl that's printed that's got your music on it, that's your essence.
Yeah.
That has been I suppose it's been saved, it's been captured in that in that record, and then that's gonna go and sit on someone's shelf in their house, you know, perhaps someone that you might never even get to meet. But there will come a time that, even if obviously, hopefully, you will get to carry on and prosper for as long as possible, but if there may come a time that as the artist, we're not there anymore, the vinyl is still sat there. There's still a part of you that people can access through that, or every merch that you ever sent out there. And I think that's a beautiful and a very special thing, actually.
Yeah, it's crazy to think of it like that as well. Yeah, and even as you said, like, you might not even meet these people, but on the other side, it's cool when you do meet these people. Like, if someone comes to a live show or whatever, and they'll be like, "Oh, we spoke online, or I bought a T-shirt, and my name is Steve or whatever," and I'm like, I remember you bought the CD and a T-shirt last year. Like, thank you very much. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's really cool. Like, I kind of want, like, the thing I try and do with Hellripper is kind of have a little kind of community where, because I myself as well, since I'm like a metalhead and I love music and stuff, it's cool being able to like speak to so many like people with a shared interest in things, you know. So I get music recommendations and stuff from like-minded people, and I get to speak with like-minded people just because they are a fan of Hellripper, like, and I get to speak with them, and I discover new stuff, I learn about new things and all that. And
one of the most interesting things with people as well is, like, when you're in metal, like, hardly anyone shares the same background. Like, people are so different, and I find it so inspiring to speak to people who are different, you know. And I don't, sometimes as well, I might talk to someone where like I can already tell I'm not going to agree with them on certain things, but that's fine to me, you know, like because it's like the point of it is, you know, connecting over the music. And there's there's a real interesting thing when you can absorb almost like other people's intelligence in a
Mm,
sense, you know,
mm,
that just over that shared interest that
yeah,
we're talking about.
yeah, yeah. I know what you're saying, man. Yeah, it's like I say, I'm just grateful to be in this position, and
Mm.
yeah, like, and yeah, like going back to it, like I like to have like I like the Hellripper to have like this little community feel, you know, where I want all the. It's cool to have the fans talk to each other as well, you know, instead of just talking to me, like they can talk with each other and get music
Yeah.
recommendations or whatever, become friends, go to shows, like, you know, if they're meet each other at shows and stuff. It's really cool. Like that's happened. Like I speak with them and on like my group page, like on Facebook and Discord and things. And yeah, it's just really cool
Mm.
having people like have positive experiences based on something I'm doing. And it's weird to think that like me shouting about goats and things is having a positive effect on people. It's like, yeah, I mean, I mean, yeah, with Hellripper, I planned to kind of, I never really planned anything to happen. Really, I want to record some stuff in my room at my parents' house and put an EP out, and maybe 10 people would listen to it. And to think that it's grown this far to um, that, that I'm in this position and stuff. It's just, yeah, I'm very grateful. I'm very, yeah, it's fucking crazy, man. Like,
I love to hear that, man. How much do you think or how much would you say, if you wanted to elaborate, the Peaceful deal has helped the band grow so far? Because it's been a couple of years now, am I correct?
yeah, I think we signed in 2019,
Oh, okay,
and
sure.
then we put the album out in 2020. Yeah, they've definitely helped, especially in the UK side of things. I think before the second album, I was doing okay in the UK, but it wasn't like I was doing way better like everywhere else. Like the UK, I wasn't really um you know, like super known or whatever. But since Peaceful, like my the reputation of the band has kind of grown in the UK a lot. And I think it just kind of brought a sense of like legitimacy to the band as well.
Mm.
And yeah, even and on the kind of, you know, the admin side of things, like them doing the vinyl and taking care of distribution and doing organizing promo and stuff and press, like that's stuff that I'm not the best at. You know, like, and it's time consuming, so it's helped a lot in that respect, like just all that kind of stuff. And it's been easy to work with them as well. Like they don't really interfere at all. Like I record the album and send it to them and they say cool. That's really it.
Yeah, they have a
Um
reputation of being like that, like throughout the
yeah,
years. I think was it My Dying Bride and Dark Throne. I guess they're kind of been the main bands that. I don't think My Dying Bride's with them anymore, but they
no,
always. I heard them say that you know, they don't interfere at all with anything creatively
yeah,
speaking.
yeah, it was, yeah, that's been the, like, because I mean, yeah, me being like a DIY kind of thing, just myself, like not really part of a scene, like, you know, based in where was I at the time? Yeah, I was yeah, just like at the top of Scotland, you know, like kind of not near to much things like happening. I'm nowhere near London. I'm quite a few hours away from Glasgow and things, you know. I'm kind of isolated from like the main places. And I thought, like, you know, if I change things, because it was a big change going from, like, you know, smaller labels who I was doing very, like, I was happy with this with the labels I was on, and doing well with them, and I had good relationships with the labels and stuff. And it was like, are things going to change? Will it be a bad experience? You know, like, will this completely just be a mess, like getting involved with a bigger label. Like, will I be forced to do this? Will it make me? Will it take out the enjoyment of everything? And yeah, it turned out like it was the best. Yeah, it was just so good. Like, it's literally just do what it's exactly the same as it was before, except I have more resources now at my disposal to promote the band and get the band out there. So yeah.
It's fantastic to hear, man. And it's such a great thing that you were able to break through, because you know how hard it is if you haven't got a label to try and get anyone. It's one of them things. It's like money or even girlfriends. It's like when you don't have it, it's impossible to get it. But when you do, it seems to be everywhere. It's the fucking craziest thing. At the risk of obviously sounding absolutely terrible when I say that, but like just. This is just to kind of round things up here as well, and it's generally like a point that I wanted to discuss with you. Obviously, you yourself said that since you are already in the process and you're in the midst of everything, perhaps it's hard to kind of look at it from an outside perspective. But just generally speaking, reflecting back on your experience of the last 9 years with Hellripper, what would you say are some of the most important insights that you may have collected in this time that a young or an up-and-coming band perhaps could really benefit from?
One thing I would say is learn to do, not even just musically, but learn, even if you're just in a band, learn how to do as much by yourself as you can, even if it's things like basic graphic design, basic video editing, if stuff like that. If it's mixing and recording, like, you'll save loads of money, loads of time. Like, if you want to promote something, you can put an ad, you can just put together an ad, like an image advertisement, like overnight or whatever. If you can do something basic yourself, rather than relying on other people that'll take a few days or whatever and then paying money for that, you can invest this kind of money on other things. Just try to reflect on everything. Like I say, it's been such a gradual thing, and yeah,
I think one thing that a lot of younger bands, especially like friends of mine that I'll speak to, who are still perhaps unsigned, is sort of like the band label relationship, because it's like, how do you get yourself to, I guess, appeal to them? And part of this is just going to come down to your music anyway, you know, and, and everyone has different tastes, but I think perhaps maybe more on that side of things, and perhaps maintaining relationships with other people, in terms of, because you seem like a very easygoing guy. Like, I can't imagine if you and I were to do like a a project together in that kind of setting, it would be quite smooth. And I think that's an important thing. But a lot of times when a lot of people who do this music, is generally because there's some kind of unresolved mental issues that they're trying to project into it, which I'm all for, by the way. I think that's actually a beauty of the whole thing. But how would you sort of advocate in terms of a younger band's relationship with other people and labels and whatnot, and people who can help them, but ideally you want those people to benefit from the band as well? And
so I've had a lot of like people ask me things, and it's kind of I think don't try and go too quickly. Like, I've had people, like, they message me saying like, okay, I've released a demo, I've got like 10 fans on Facebook or whatever, how can I get signed to Peaceville? And I'm like, that's very unlikely to happen. Like I say, it took me I mean, I to be fair, I got signed to a bigger label quicker than a lot of bands, but
I was actually going to say you got signed relatively early. All things considered.
But I mean, it was after 5 years of kind of constant. I had loads of releases out. I had 2 EPs, a bunch of splits. I was active on social media all of the time. We were playing some live shows. We just went on a tour of Europe. When Peaceville contacted me, we just went on our first tour of Europe. So there was hard work. Like, there was work to get to that point as well. It just so happened that the right people heard the band and recommended the band to Peaceville and stuff like. And that can happen, that could happen to you after a year, or that can happen to you after 10, 15 years. Like time scale, I think, is unimportant. I think people want to do things so quick nowadays. Like I've released, like some people even message me like, I'm looking to start a band. How can I get signed to a big label? I've had a couple messages and I'm like, focus on the music, like do music. And that's the most important thing. If you enjoy the music, if you're doing it for, like the main reason is to enjoy the music, write good music because you want to, rather than I'm going to write music so I can sign to Peaceville or Nuclear Blast or whatever, like that will come, hopefully that will come if you're doing the main part well. And yeah, like relationships and stuff, just try and a lot of people like it kind of relates again to like people kind of want something without really offering anything in return or something. Like I say, like for example, I want to sign to Peaceville after one demo. Yeah, but you're not offering anything to Peaceville, like unless your new band, unless James Hetfield is in the new band and will guarantee thousands of sales, like the thing people don't want to realize is it's the music like business. So a lot of things, in the metal community, like we don't want to, speak about doing things for money or business side of things. Like it's kind of like a taboo thing. You don't want that, like you don't want to see your band as a business or whatever, like you say, like an entrepreneur type thing. So a lot of people kind of don't want to recognize that and kind of act in that way, which is fine if you don't want to, like you can do that, but don't expect to be on a massive label if you want to do things that in that way or whatever. I don't know if I'm being clear there or I'm just trying to put thoughts
actually
through.
Actually, I think you're making perfect sense, and I'll put it like this: what you need to do is focus on adding value to yourself.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, because you want to be in a situation where, a lot of times, and I've certainly been there before, I always thought, I had this kind of a naive mindset especially when I first moved to the UK for like the first 2-3 years. I was like, oh, when people find out what I've been through just to play this music, everyone's gonna want to support the band. No one gave a shit, But then at the same time, that was only because I didn't know how to get that message out there. And the whole point of it is that you have to add value to yourself, and that is something that can be self-created. You don't have to. If there's something that I take from what you've just said, and it's something that I could perhaps tell my own younger self, and I'm sure that some might benefit from hearing this as well, definitely, is don't sit around and wait for some dreamlike situation to come and save you or to just give you what you want. You have to work for it. You have to put in the effort. You have to, like we said, add value to your own work, be it through the music that you release, be it through the self-promotion that you do, be it through the shows that you put on, all of these things. And yes, like you said, it's taboo to look at being in a band as a business and whatnot. I agree. I'm on the side of treating this as art. However, I think that the same principles apply nevertheless. And you don't want to, you want a label to feel like they can make money from you. Right? Or at the very least, at the very minimum, if they're extremely generous people, you want them to feel like they can be proud of being a part of what you have to contribute to the world, artistically speaking. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think, again, patience and hard work, I think. And like what you said, like, don't just sit around and wait for stuff. It's like kind of, I couldn't find band members. I wasn't really part of a scene. So I just went and did it myself. Like I started Hellripper because I knew if I waited for people, I might not ever do it, and then I'll get bored of the idea, like can't be bothered waiting for people, and I'll give up or something. And then patience, like keep doing stuff. And I think a lot of people as well see, like, you'll see a band and you never see the full picture. Like you think, oh, this band's first album has just been released on a major label and it's huge and stuff, and they've came out of nowhere or something. But what you don't realize, like, is these guys or whatever have been in the scene and been in like 5 quite known bands or something for 10 years previously, 15 years previously. So they've kind of got their own reputations, they've got contacts, they've got some interest, kind of before the band starts. Like, they're not starting from nothing or something like that, if that makes sense. I think to be fair, it is difficult when you're not involved in the artistic side, the music. If you're not involved in the music business side, it's hard to know exactly what happens. Like, people like still think it's very easy to be like a millionaire if you put out an album on Peaceville or Metal Blade. You're going to be a millionaire overnight, like you're famous and stuff. It's like, that's not what happens.
But actually, that's an extremely important point, because it's our perception of success as well. It's that it's the way that we identify success in today's modern world, is that success is when you've got all the money in the world and you're on a beach with a fucking cocktail in your hand. First of all, fuck that lifestyle anyway, because it's like, you're just not doing anything. The point of success, I think, in any sort of role, but especially in the context of being in a band, a rock band at that, is the fact that you'll just get to do what you're doing more and on a bigger scale, and it's going to be even harder work. I know that they sometimes get a bad rep, sometimes they don't, but look at a band like Ghost. They would not be anywhere near what they are had they not been, or had he not been, the most hardworking motherfuckers ever. Because you can't just get famous and say, oh yeah, we made it, bye. That's not...
And that comes from my other point as well. Ghost, Tobias was in Repugnant and all these other bands beforehand. Exactly. So Ghost, like, they came from nowhere, but this guy was already in well-known bands for however many, 10 years or however long he was in the scene.
Which all essentially failed as well. They're behind Ghost, there's like 2 or 3 failures. And those failures are only highly regarded now because of the success of Ghost. It's quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. See, and that's, so it's crazy. I mean, Ghost are doing so well, but you've just got to put in the hard work, really. Like, you've got to love what you're doing, and if your main goal is, to sign to a label or be rich or whatever, like, you're already going about it the wrong way. Because it's like, you can have a lifestyle, like, you may say you sign to a big label, but they interfere with your music and all that. Like, they want to change this, you've got to do this, you've got to do a bunch of stuff you don't want to do, but maybe you make a bit more money. Is that better than making a bit less money and then doing whatever you want to do musically and artistically? Like, not to me.
Absolutely, man. Well, James, I very much appreciate you coming on the podcast tonight, man. I do really appreciate this. I think that, especially like a lot of our musician friends in younger bands, or perhaps not necessarily even younger, but ones that are in a position who are yet to kind of break through to that next step, I think a lot of people could actually benefit from hearing some of what was said here tonight.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah, me too, man. And with that in mind, just to kind of round things up, what can you tell us about the new album? What are the plans for the band? Where can people check you out? I'm guessing you're gonna have a very busy time ahead in the next year or two.
Yeah, we're so yeah, the new album, Warlocks, Grim and Withered Hags, will be out on February 17th on Peaceful Records, or may already be out if depending on when the podcast goes out. And you can find the band on Facebook, Bandcamp, YouTube, Instagram, just anywhere online really. And we're doing a few shows over the next year or two. We'll be doing a few UK dates with Warbringer in April. We'll be doing
I saw that. I'm hoping to come to one of those actually.
Oh, cool, man. Yeah, that'll be really fun. Then we've got a few like festival and one-off things and weekenders, like kind of throughout the year. And yeah, we're going to be away all summer in Europe, like for 5-6 weeks in Europe, and not everything's confirmed yet, but we'll be playing some cool shows there with some cool bands. And then I think we're planning a tour in early 2024. But again, it's still kind of early stages. So yeah, you can go on my social media and stuff and you'll see updates and all that kind of thing. And yeah.
Awesome,
if anyone
man.
wants to check it out, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll link everything in the description so people can obviously come out and check out your work. I'm presuming many of them might already be familiar with what you're doing, but it'll still all be there anyway. James, very much appreciate your time, brother. Kick-ass fucking conversation. Thank you again for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely my pleasure. And to everyone else as well for listening. Thank you all. If you made it so far, hope this was a valuable conversation to you. Be sure to check out Hellripper's new album, Warlocks, Grim and Withered Hags, which is out on Peaceful Records on 17th of February, as we already mentioned. So yeah, go and fucking check that out, and be sure to support the band on the upcoming dates. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye-bye.